Astros completing the first half of their 162-game regular season this past week. Always a good time to check in and always great to do it with these guys. Joining us virtually, we have KHOU 11 baseball analyst, former big league scout, Jeremy Booth, and from ESPN 97.5's The Paul Gallant Show, Paul Gallant, and of course, our Luis Ortiz. It's great to see you guys. And Jeremy, I just got to start by asking first off, what's with the hardware?
You know, it's funny. You know, Zack, it's a lot of winning going on right now. You know, you got the lineup construction debate. You got whether or not they need an outfielder. You know, some starting. It's just been like a championship week for me. You know what I mean? So I pulled out the championship belts that I got from the Caribbean Classic, 2-time defending. And yeah, I just figured, you know, kind of commemorate the occasion with that. I have a hard hat being made. It says lineup construction on it, but it's not here yet, so we're going to have to go with these belts for today.
How humble of you.
Right?
Thank you so much. I work on it. Yeah.
Very understated. But speaking of winning, the Astros have been doing a lot of it. And before we do anything, we need to take this team's temperature. So, Jeremy, I'm going to start with you. We've got very hot, hot, and warm. Tell me, what is this team's temperature right now?
You know what, Zach? This is a very hot baseball club. These guys are doing a lot of things right. And when they're not doing things right, they're finding ways to get it done. And that's what winning clubs have to do. The front office is working well with the field staff. It seems like you've got even the analytics department finally on board with what everybody else wants to do on the baseball side. And it's a fun to watch club. They got to keep anything close to this momentum. And it's going to be a fun postseason.
I am also going to have to go with very hot because this team is playing excellent team baseball, maybe some of the best that we've seen out of any organization in the last couple years. It seems like on any given night, any guy can step up, and this team has been getting it done in different ways. But at the end of the day, they're just playing good baseball.
Yeah, guys, I think they're doing very well. I don't know about very hot. I'm going to go with hot, just a degree under very hot, and here's why. I think offensively, how many runs they score, you want to see a little bit more from the Astros. In the past, that's been kind of their Achilles heel sometimes, you know, especially in the playoffs. There's still a whole nother half left to be played. Sometimes they struggle. When you look at the Tigers, the Dodgers, the top teams up there in the majors, the Yankees, the run differential, there's quite a gap between the Astros and those other teams.
What do we got, Paul?
All right, I'm going to give you something unconventional here because there's somewhere in between very hot and hot, but I truly cannot explain how the Astros are doing this. With all the injuries, with the lack of offense that you mentioned, with the people that they are bringing in off the street to start games for them, whether they're in the outfield or in the rotation. So I'm going to say they are like a 72-degree day in Houston in August or in July.
Wow.
I have no idea how it's happening. I love it, but it doesn't make any sense to me that they continue to win and that they have built a 6.5-game lead now in the American League West.
How about the mobility, man? He got on one knee.
He did. And okay, now that we have this team's temperature, we're going to have some bold predictions coming up. It's time now for bold predictions, and we've got the bold crew to make them. Okay, gentlemen, let's start out with the obvious. The Astros have been playing great baseball. They were 15 games over 500 to start the season. They went 19-7 in the month of June, and they've got a 6.5-game lead in the American League West. So, for our first prediction, given what we've seen in the first half, the Astros will win the AL West convincingly.
Convincingly, okay. Yeah, I'm seeing it happening. At this moment in time, if you take a look at where the Houston Astros are relative to those other two teams in the division, whether it's the Mariners or the Rangers, who had a lot of pomp and circumstance going into the season, they're not catching them. They're just not. I mean, this is generally the Astros division. It has been, it seems like, forever. And with a 6.5-game lead and the easiest schedule in all of baseball the rest of the way, they're good to go. They're going to win this, I think, very, very, very convincingly.
I like what he just brought up at the end. The easiest schedule now the rest of the way because they've played the toughest schedule to begin the season. So the fact that they've been able to do what they have done after facing the toughest schedules thus far, with all of the injuries, just finding ways to win, something has clicked for this team. Joe Espada has pushed the right buttons, and look, it looks like they can only get better, hopefully, right? I mean, anything can happen the rest of the year. Let's hope they avoid any type of slump or anything like that. But it looks like they can only get better. They start to get Jordan back. Maybe, hopefully, they get some type of starter back as well out of the guys that are injured. And then, you know, I think they're getting ready to make a deep run.
All right, Jeremy, your thoughts? Will they win the AL West convincingly?
You know, I think we got to remember we're still at the halfway point.
Yeah.
right? And we got to remember that it's not. There's a lot of baseball left. I like the points that were made. I think the easiest schedule, that's a big one. That's a big, especially for a team that's got some pitching injuries that's been along the line. And that said, how well they win the division, I do think they win the division at this point, is going to depend on the reinforcements they get on the mound. They've got some things figured out offensively. Who knows what type of team they're really going to be when Alvarez comes back? It's a mystery. Sometimes when Alvarez gets in the lineup, everybody else stops swinging the bat. I don't understand that at all. He should make people better, and his presence does. But yet, we find ways to shuffle guys around to this point and lose chemistry. So it's really going to depend on what they get on the mound. They have some reinforcements that should be coming back. Guys are throwing the ball now on the mound. They're getting started. McCullers is a hit or miss type guy. He's a spot starter for me. In Sugarland, he's a reliever here in the big leagues. But when it comes to, what that really should happen, the pitching is going to dictate it.
Yeah, I also think that the pitching is going to dictate it, and a lot of getting Yordan back in the lineup as well, because as we know, the guys who maybe weren't expected to perform in the first half of the season, in the second half of the season, we don't know if that's really going to hold up. They need a tried and true guy back in that lineup like Yordan to supply the power that they may not get out of those guys who haven't historically given them that power. And as of today, Houston has the third best record in baseball, trailing only the Dodgers and the Tigers. Our next prediction, the Astros will have one of the top 3 records in baseball when this season ends.
I'm not going to go so far as to say top 3 records in baseball, but I do think that they will have one of the top 2 records in the American League, which is really all that matters. I think that they will be able to have a better record than the New York Yankees by the end of the year. I do not think they're catching the Detroit Tigers, though, because we talked about how the Astros have the easiest schedule in baseball the rest of the way. The Tigers have the 3rd easiest schedule in baseball the rest of the way. So it's going to be tough to, I think, get past them. But, where the Astros are right now, I don't think any of us would have said that they would be here, just given all that they've been through and given the way that the season began.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more incredible thing is imagining where they are right now. They've gotten through the tougher part of their schedule, played very well, 15 games over 500 through the first 81 games. So can they keep it up?
I believe so. Honestly, I think, look, they're 2.5 games behind the Tigers. I think they can catch them. There's a lot of baseball left to be played. A lot of things can happen. Either way, positively or negatively for the Astros. If they continue to stay hot, how about if they make any additions during the trade deadline? You never know. Yordan comes back and he's hitting well. I think Jeremy Peña's that guy. Going back to your point, can someone be that other guy that steps up? I think he's done it. I think he does it for the rest of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they do end up being number 1 in the American League. The Dodgers are not too far either. They can go into a slump. Anything can happen.
Jeremy, the Astros, top 3 team at the end of the season?
The Angels were 4 back or whatever that was, something close, right? And I say that to tell you how bad the American League West is. It's a bad division. And when you look at some of the individual seasons guys are having across this division, Cal Raleigh in Seattle is having a monstrous year. When you look at the pitching, the young pitching they've got there, and the fact that the A's are young and exciting. I'm not saying they're going to be anything to win the division, but they're certainly going to make it interesting. They can go in the ballpark any given night and they can win a game. And you look across the country and you got the American League East, which is a bloodbath division. It's slugfest and it's pain and it's everything is emotionally draining. I think that's going to work in the Astros' favor towards the top 5 record. Whether it's a top 3 record, there's too many variables for that. But do they get into a good place as far as entering the postseason and position themselves for home field advantage? Yeah, I think we can say that they do that. Yeah, they're going to be in a good spot in the top 5 records.
Well, we know they've played well as a team, but how about some of those individual performances? As fantastic as Framber Valdez has been, Hunter Brown has been even better, posting the best ERA in baseball through the first half. This prediction is a 2-parter. Hunter Brown will finish top 3 in the American League Cy Young voting.
I think he's going to be there. Take a look at what he's done this year. There's only 3 other pitchers that have had a first half like we've seen from Hunter Brown. It's Roger Clemens, it's Nolan Ryan, it's Justin Verlander. This is historic stuff that he is doing this season. And if you take a look back to the beginning of last year, once he figured out how to throw a little bit better than he was that awful first month, statistically, he's maybe been the best pitcher in the sport. I think he's definitely going to be top 3 for the Cy Young.
Luis?
I agree. Look, we were just in the Astros clubhouse the other day, right? And for game one against the Cubs. And I actually went and approached him and I was like, hey, dude, look, you've been pitching your butt off. And I just kind of wanted to pick his brain. I was like, how do you feel? Because as a pitcher or athlete, I don't know how they feel as far as I think he's growing to stardom. And I don't know if he likes to think that way. But it was like, okay, dude, how do you feel about this progression? You're seeing it yourself. You're the one that feels it. You're the one that can feel these pitches and just how well you're pitching. And he's literally like, well, look, this is what we work for, right? This is what I want to do. So I think he definitely finishes up their top three.
And it seems like that sinker has been so important for him getting outs earlier in the count, although he is still racking up the strikeouts. Jeremy, do we start the Hunter Brown for AL Cy Young campaign now?
You know, the evolution of Hunter Brown begins and ends with the sinker. And it was, it's a flat four-seam fastball. It was very relief-oriented. It was velocity, everything. And then all of a sudden, we figure out how to start going east and west, right? And if you listen to analysts, and I say this with love. If you listen to analysts, they talk about four-seam pitches all the time, right? And four-seam pitches end up in that hitting zone, that little thing we call a box. And so for guys like Hunter Brown who have a flat four-seam fastball, regardless of what they have and regardless how hard they throw, if you throw it in that box, big league hitters are going to do exactly what they did to him for the first part of his career. Hit it 9 million miles the other way as often as possible. But you start doing this, which is what he's doing, and working down and playing an angle, and now all of a sudden that's really effective stuff. With that in mind, I think he might be the front runner. And when it comes to what Luis's point about picking his brain, which is great, you always want to ask pitchers and players at any given point in time in their career where they are. I'm going to tell you right now, Hunter Brown knows exactly what his value is because his agent is Scott Boras. Okay? He's listening, and he's got all that stuff together. He's piling into what that is, and he's working ahead. So he's got all the confidence in the world. He's got all the mound presence in the world, and he's impressive at this point. He made himself, and there's not too many people you can say that about. He made himself into where he is today.
And if I can add, I mean, look, don't kill me for this, right? But his idol growing up, Justin Verlander, not going to say he's pitching like JV. He hasn't reached that status, but he's trending that way, right? I mean, his ERA right now, 1.77?
Mm-hmm. It's really impressive.
It's pretty good. And the entire Astros staff has been good. We mentioned Framber Valdez. And the Houston staff, they've got an ERA that's sixth best in baseball despite multiple injuries. So the second part of this is, will their staff still be among the best in baseball when the season ends?
I'm skeptical about that if we're talking about the starting rotation because they're just getting so much out of guys like Colton Gordon and Brandon Walter and Ryan Gusto. I mean, it's unfair to ask for any more from them. If you're counting the bullpen's been so good this season, so if that's the entire pitching staff, sure, okay, it's in the conversation, but I just think right now, I mean, you're putting Lance McCullers out there, and as we heard from Jeremy a little bit earlier, I mean, it's hit and miss with him from time to time. They're in, I think, a really difficult spot when it comes to that starting rotation. Luckily, just going back to what we were talking about earlier, easiest schedule the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say, right? You just made a good point about those other guys, Brandon Walters, Ryan Gusto. Are they going to stay consistent, or, at some point do they get tired? I mean, it's a long season. You've seen it with other pitchers. It's tough, man. I mean, they kind of like, at some point, you feel like they might run out of magic. But one thing about the Astros is that they've done every year is that they lose guys ever since, George Springer left. They just find a way, like you said, they bring guys out of the street and just find a way to make guys seem like they're just great players.
Whatever their pitching coaches are doing and have been doing for all this time, it's really incredible because it's just next man up over and over and over again.
Jeremy, does how well this staff does in the second half depend on getting some of that cavalry back, like a J.P. France or Luis Garcia or a Christian Javier?
The thing about the big leagues is that when they see you once, they don't know you yet. Doesn't matter what the scouting reports say, this is got to get a feel for you. By the time they see you a second time, they've got you figured out, and you're going to have to adjust back to them. That's the chess match of the game. Everybody knows what's coming, believe it or not, in any given situation. Everybody knows what the offense situation calls for you at every pitch. How you execute is going to depend on how many games you win. I was just with the trainer in the Dominican Republic that had Framber Valdez as an amateur before he signed with the Astros. I was just with him. And we talked a lot about some of the makeup behind the scenes that people don't get to see of Framber as a young man. I say that to say this: even though Hunter Brown has emerged as their best pitcher, it's still Fromber's staff, right? I mean, there's guys you take the ball and you know that Hunter Brown, you're going to win. You're going to win or be in the ball game that night. Well, when Valdez takes the ball, you know you're going to be in the ball game that night, right? And so when it comes to how that staff is, you need more guys in that rotation, or at least to piggyback with the guys that are there now, that'll help you extend those games to get to a place where you know you're in the ball game. If you know you're not in the ball game, or you feel like you're down 3-0 before you even take a pitch, emotionally it becomes something to fight through that's pretty difficult. So the answer is yes and no, right? It's still going to be a team game and how they get through it, but they're going to have to find a way to help out some of these guys that are succeeding their first time around the league, or smoke and mirrors, or maybe out of role, like a McCullers or a Gusto or any of the other cast of characters they've had that filled in. So they can get there. You got to patch it together. They can get there.
All right. Well, there's still more to talk about. These guys aren't going anywhere because there's still more to predict as Sports Extra rolls on. Back on Sports Extra with KHOU 11 baseball analyst Jeremy Booth and Paul Gallant from ESPN 97.5. We just weighed in on some bold predictions, so let's make some more. Jeremy Pena off to a hot start through 81 games. He had the second highest WAR in all of baseball, trailing only Aaron Judge. Prediction: at the end of the season, Pena will be the Astros MVP. Have at it.
Well, I'm sure that Jeremy Pena feels that he will be the Astros MVP because, like our other Jeremy Booth mentioned a little bit earlier, he just hired Scott Boras as his agent too. So he's feeling himself. But my big concern right now when it comes to Jeremy Pena is this rib injury and, this Astros training staff, are we sure he didn't break all of his ribs and get a heart bruise? I don't know. I don't trust them at all. They drive me crazy.
Luis?
Oh, man. I don't know. The way that Hunter Brown has pitched, what's more valuable? A starter or a shortstop? Or which one? How do you kind of gauge or weigh which guy has impacted more the team as far as the wins go? I get it. He's been playing great, right? Let's give him props. He's made the adjustments that he's had to, especially after his rookie season. Then after that, he's kind of gone downhill a little bit more. Then now, he stepped up to what we want Jeremy Pena to be. I don't know. I think for me, I'd go more on the pitching side. I think Hunter Brown might be the guy.
I'm only going to play devil's advocate. You know how important I think pitching is, but I'm only going to play devil's advocate because they have not had Yordan Alvarez for so much of this season. And Pena has made such a difference in that lineup, having a stable presence there, a run producer. He's got double-digit home runs. I just think that at the end of the season, we might look back and say the Astros staff was excellent throughout the season, but the one thing they didn't have throughout this season was offense.
So if he wasn't playing at this level, and if you take away Hunter Brown or you take him away, what do you think? Who would be the biggest impact? I mean, would they win this amount of games with with Hunter Brown pitching so well, or the other way around?
They're scoring one run a game, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I mean, the guy at the top of the lineup, I think, has been helping out. Hunter Brown, we see once every 5 games, so I got to go with Jeremy Pena.
Okay.
What about our Jeremy Booth? What do you think about this?
The MVP for the Houston Astros is not Jeremy Pena, and it's not Hunter Brown. The MVP for the Houston Astros is Jose Altuve. Because it took Jose Altuve going to the front office and Joe Espada to shake it up and get Pena back at the top of the lineup, right? They weren't doing that until he was selfless enough to move himself out and say, I want to win. This isn't working. We got to move this around. When that happens, you get a guy like Pena, who I've been on record quite a bit as saying he's kind of like the Alex Rodriguez as a rookie. He's going to need fastballs. He needs to hit in front of protection, and that's what he's got. If you got to face, in a perfect world, you got to face Pena, or you got to face Altuve or Alvarez or the murderer's row that can be there behind him. Every single guy in baseball is picking Pena. And that's what you saw over the last couple of years. You move him up in the lineup and you get protection, all of a sudden you get the Jeremy Pena of old. Now, with that comes confidence, comes swing adjustments, because anything you can do to develop. But none of this happens without Jose Altuve going to Joe Espada and Dana Brown and saying, what are we doing? This guy's got to go up here. I'll go back a slot or two and let's see how it figures out. So any individual awards are, in this particular case, which I would go with Pena statistically because he's playing every day. But any given war, any awards that happen are strictly because his teammate decided to put himself last and the team first and put Pena in a position to be successful.
Well, some might argue that this team wouldn't be where it is without the guy who's steering the ship, Joe Espada. Through 81 games, I mean, last year the Astros 40-41 at the same point. And I don't have to mention who these guys lost in the offseason. So prediction, at this rate, Joe Espada will be the AL Manager of the Year.
Ooh, that's going to be tough because you got to factor in voters, and there always seems to be a little bit of an anti-Astros agenda. You've seen Dusty Baker manage this team very well. You've seen A.J. Hinch manage this team very well. And by the way, A.J. Hinch is managing the best team in the American League. And if you go back to the end of last year where the Tigers got on a roll, at the end of the year before they dust-busted the Astros in that 2-game series in the playoffs, I mean, it's been him ever since that. So I think he's got a long way to go, Espada, to overtake Hinch, but he's definitely in the conversation. I think if he wants to take it away from A.J. Hinch, the Astros are going to have a rather significantly better record than the Tigers at the end of the season.
Man, with all the injuries that they've dealt with, I think that might be what just pushes Joe over A.J. Hinch. I agree with everything you said, but listen, they're not far away as far as the records go. Again, 2 games behind. I think they can catch them. If they do catch them, and they end up with the first place in the American League, I think Joe has a really good argument for it.
Multiple injuries, and they lose multiple guys who meant so much to this organization, including one of them being a franchise player in Kyle Tucker. So, Jeremy, what do you think?
Got a little bit of a different view on this, and I will admit it's a little biased, and here's why. Because last year I stood in the media room when the playoffs were over, and I listened to Jason ask Joe Espada about the statistical, and I'm not talking about like WOBA plus WHIP times BABIP. I'm talking about like basic stats about why we were hitting a certain way versus another one that won games. And Joe didn't want to talk about it. No answer. Now, if Joe's Manager of the Year, regardless of what the record says, to me, it's only Manager of the Year if he's actually stepped up and changed his thinking, and that's why Payne is and the lineup is doing what it's doing. With that in mind, back to the American League East, it's a bloodbath. And you don't know what's going to happen over there yet. And getting through that division is a lot tougher than getting through the West and a lot tougher than getting through the Central. So if you're going to go look at Tampa Bay, which I didn't have them I'm a big Tampa Bay supporter when it comes to their front office and how they do things, and I didn't see that. If you go back and look at some of the things they have over there, I thought Toronto would be better than they are. They're not. So when you look at what you've got as a whole, I think he's in the running. I think AJ's in the running. No. But the division factor, to me, it has to matter because whoever comes out of the AL East is going to be far more battle-tested from this season, maybe not historically, but from this season than what happens everywhere else this year.
See, I mean, and look, Jeremy has already touched on this twice as far as just how weak the AL West is, right? But, and I get it, they play the majority of their games against those division rivals, but you play against the entire Major League of Baseball, right? Like, it's not just those guys that you face. So I understand that argument, but I don't think it's just like the whole argument to be repetitive.
Well, let's move on to the brass, because for as much credit as Espada has gotten and will get, deservedly so, Dana Brown has also had to orchestrate all of this. Cam Smith, need I say more? Well, let's say more. Prediction: Dana Brown will be in the running for Executive of the Year. Paul.
You mentioned brass just a moment ago. I don't think any executive in baseball has more brass, if you get what I'm saying, than Dana Brown. I mean, the stones to move on from Alex Bregman, to trade Kyle Tucker for Cam Smith, who Dana Brown said I viewed as a right fielder going back to watching him in college. Take a look at what Smith's been doing of late. I mean, they moved him into the cleanup spot in the lineup, and he was great against Chicago this past weekend. And then on top of that, finding the guys that they're finding on the waiver wires or whatever to fill in for a rotation that's banged up. I don't think there's any debate on this one. I think what Dana Brown has done going into this year and has had emerged successful on the diamond this year, I think you got to give it to him.
Luis?
I think for the first time I'm going to be short. It's pretty clear because he was the only guy that after they traded Kyle Tucker and Ryan Presley and all the guys that they've lost, he said we're going to win this division. And, you know, he was confident that they were going to be successful, and here they are.
Dana Brown was adamant all the way back to the offseason that the Astros were projected to win this division, and he believed that even without Alex Bregman, they could do just that, and now they're in the position to do it. Jeremy, he told us that at the winter meetings in December. What do you think now?
Man, this is, of all the stuff we've talked about tonight and all year, this one's a little bit tough for me, only because it's not a secret Dana and I go back a long way, right? And we go a long way. And so I don't think there's any question that Dana's the executive of the year right now. I think what he's done with this club, top to bottom, I think his leadership and his balance of getting people to work together, because again, regardless of Altuve or how this comes together, even with Spada, if Dana's not bringing that together, something that James Click, even though they won, had a tough time doing, and something that Jeff Luhnow had a tough time doing with anybody that wasn't of his thought process. Dana has gone in there, this scout, this veteran baseball guy who's really maligned today in our industry, in our game, as far as these front office kids, and he has done a master class on how to bring people together from different lines of thinking, how to get players to buy in for player development, how to put a young manager, in which I will give Joe a spot of this. He is a young manager, not young in age, but a young manager. How to steer his club, how to give him enough reins to understand what's coming ahead, and then how to go ahead and have the foresight to navigate some very difficult contract situations, including the one right now with Jeremy Pena also hiring Scott Boras, right? That's a tough one. So when you have these things in play, Dana Brown's done an excellent job. He deserves it. There isn't another executive in baseball, except maybe Scott Harris with the Tigers, only because of how far they've had to go in the last couple of years, that would deserve this recognition today. Dana earns it, and I don't think it's even close.
All right, these guys are bold. Thank you to our KHOU 11 baseball analyst, Jeremy Booth, and ESPN 97.5's Paul Gallant of the Paul Gallant Show for being on with us.
Thank you, guys.
Always good to be back.